What is happening? Welcome. It's Thursday night, and you know what that means. The Hammer and Nails show, always on Thursday night. We're back. Usually it's always Thursday night. Last week we went a day early, but we're back on our normal time slot. And as always, I'm Jack Hammer of the Press Democrat, and with me is my co-host, and that's why it's the Hammer and Nails show, because I got the Nails guy with me right here, Jessie Naylor. How you doing?
I don't know if I've ever been referred to as quote unquote the nails guy, but I'll take it.
It's not as bad as what I said to Sunil the other night. So we're good. We're good. We're off to a roaring start, and we have E. Kim joining. He says, "Hey guys," he wants to also know if there's a call-in show tonight, Jesse. But I don't think there is. I think you have a big show planned to come up on your channel later on tonight.
Yeah, not tonight, E. Kim. I'm going. So Grant and I, because of the Warriors, they're throwing everything off. We decided not to go last night, but Grant's going to join me on my channel right after this. So 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific. Grant will be on my show, and we're going to do 49ers After Dark on my channel this week.
There you go. There you go. That should be fun. And then we have Andrew joining, and he says, "Hi, Jack," and "Hi, Sunil." So hello, Sunil. How you doing? I don't know if he's out there watching the show or not, but
I don't know if this is a throwback to Tuesday night, but Sunil called me Jack on my show because he had just done a show with you, and so I don't know. I go, wait a minute, did you just call me Jack? He's like, did I? Yeah, I think you just called me Jack.
Oh man, I hope you took that as a compliment. Hopefully what you were saying hopefully you're making a good point. It wasn't something crazy.
It was probably something really outlandish.
Nah, but there's all kinds of stuff going on around the 49ers right now, and it never stops with this team. All kinds of stuff going on, and wanted to get your take on, in particular, before we get into some of the other topics, or the other topic that we wanted to really get into tonight. I wanted to get your take on everything that's going on around Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo and this whole scenario that we keep seeing.
It's crazy because it doesn't seem to stop, Jack. Like, I swear every week we're talking about a new rumor or somebody else coming out talking about Trey Lance for whatever reason. But within the last 2 days, we've had Steve Young, Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Ryan Harris, who was an offensive lineman. We've had Chris Sims. We've had, who else was it? The co-host on Rich Eisen's show, and somebody else come out and talk about Trey Lance. It's like, it just never stops. And to me, it's getting to a point where people are just making things up. Like, flat out making things up. Somebody today, I think it was Ryan Harris, it was today or yesterday, the offensive lineman on CBS radio said something along the lines of, Trey Lance, first of all, he talked about arm something. I forget what he called it. But then he talked about the 49ers aren't sure if Trey Lance can pick up the playbook. Like, that's just flat out a lie, right? You look at it, and Kyle Shanahan straight up said in November, I think this was November 16th, Trey Lance has the playbook in his head. He's known it since training camp. Where are people getting these things, right? Like, there are reports that are wrong, where people reported Mac Jones going to the 49ers, or, there are reports that come out that end up being wrong. But these are things that are just flat out lies after we already know the answer. They act as if Trey Lance hasn't played a single game. They act as if we haven't already gotten the answers to everything that's going on. Period, point blank. People are just making up lies at this point. And I don't understand it. I've never seen anything like it. And when it happens, it's happening in bunches. It's not just one person. It's 6, 7 people at a time. It feels like, just making things up. It's crazy to me.
No, I agree. I mean, I was listening today to, I don't know, something from Chris Sims. I don't know if it was him talking about why he had Trey Lance at 31 or what him. I don't know what the overall subject matter was, but he's talking about him, and I agree with you. There's stuff that people are saying, they're just talking out of their rear ends, just because they can do it, because our good friend Grant tweeted out something about a couple months ago, basically where he says it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. People don't care about that. They're more interested in the way that you say it and your charisma and all that kind of stuff. And he's not wrong. People don't care if you're wrong if they like you. And I'm not. This isn't about Grant. This is just about like Chris Sims. There's people that really like Chris Sims, and I'm listening to Chris Sims talk, and he's talking about how inaccurate Trey Lance is, and he says something about how he watches film of him he's watching all this film of him, and it's like he's 6 of 15, and all of a sudden it's like we're gonna help you get a bunch of throws here. They're gonna be easy to get you to 50% or something like that. I don't know if you heard that in the thing today, but that's just garbage. That's not even accurate. That's not even close. I mean, first off, he only threw 29 passes in one game and 22 in the other, or 23 maybe it was. It's just, I mean, if you're going to come out and say stuff, and that's at least, that's one of the reasons why, sometimes I think I'm a little boring, because I just come out and I try to keep things honest. And that's just some of the stuff that I'm hearing about Trey Lance is just, it's intellectually dishonest based off of what we've heard and what we've been able to see with our own eyes.
Yeah, so I saw that Chris Sims talking about Trey Lance, and he said something along the lines of, well, every game he's struggling to get to 50%, and it's almost like Shanahan realizes it mid-game and has to give him some easy throws to get there. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, so let's look at the Texans game. He was 16 of 23. I mean, God, if he was at 50% entering the fourth quarter, he would have really had to go on a run to finish 16 of 23. And then he talked about the deep balls from Trey Lance and how they're basically gimmies and all drawn up by Shanahan. And I'm also thinking to myself at that point, okay, so if that's the case, then why don't we see a bunch of deep shots taken from other 49er quarterbacks that have been coached by Kyle Shanahan? Why is it just Trey Lance that's completing these passes? Right? Like, the whole thing is made up. And it goes back to Chris Sims last week talking about, it was either last week or the week before, talking about if you weren't at training camp, you don't know. You weren't at training camp, Chris Sims. You were not at 49ers training camp. I don't remember anybody that was at training camp once saying, oh yeah, Chris Sims was there today. You weren't there. So how are you going to tell other people that also weren't there what they should and should not think about Trey Lance? Again, everybody has this thought about Trey Lance or these rumors about Trey Lance, but they act like Trey Lance hasn't played football. Like we haven't seen him actually play the game of football at the NFL level, as if that film does not exist and we can't come to our own conclusion. Although, yes, it's small. It's a small sample size. It doesn't make anything for sure. But to act as if we didn't see this kid improve or actually play in the NFL, that's what's crazy to me. I don't understand it. Oh, Jack, listen. Did you see that? I've just wowed Jack to being frozen. That's incredible. Wow. Look at that. All right. Well, while Jack is coming back, let's get the exact quote from Chris Sims. So he says a lot of his big time throws were Shanahan specials. Okay. So if that's the case, then why doesn't Jimmy Garoppolo complete these quote unquote Shanahan specials? Then he has another quote. Let me see if I can find it here. Hold on. Oh, here it is. I think the accuracy is still the biggest question, Sims said. Just pure ability to be a thrower and a passer. Again, every game was an effing miracle to get back to 50% throwing. I mean, it really was. And I feel like Shanahan had to basically call plays to just go, let's get his completion percentage up. Maybe we can end the game at 50%. I really felt as I was watching some of the games that was a part of it. Okay. All right. So again, the Texans game when he was 16 to 23. Tell me how that makes any sort of sense whatsoever. Right? So you're telling me that it was a struggle for him to get to 50%, but you're completely neglecting a game in which he started. And you make that comment as if he started a lot of games, right? He's only started 2 games. And at least half of those, you can guarantee that that was not the case. He's just flat out saying things at this point, flat out saying things. So to me, I don't know. Chris Sims, Ryan Harris, all these other guys that are making things up. I actually went back and forth with who was it? Rich Eisen's co-host today. He and I had a little back and forth on Twitter about Trey Lance, where he said, let me see if I can find it, because this was laughable to me as well. Jack, you're back. I mean, I blew your mind there. You were completely frozen.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It was so good that it wasn't even the takes from all these guys are so cold they froze me.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Yeah, it's Chris Brockman on Twitter. So he is Rich Eisen's co-host, and he basically said that the 49ers are in trouble if Trey Lance plays. And so he and I had a back and forth, and he said 7 minutes from a Super Bowl, an NFC championship game last year, or excuse me, 7 minutes from a Super Bowl, from winning a Super Bowl is I think what he meant, and played in an NFC championship last year. What other player has done that recently? He's talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, Mahomes, and Tom Brady. That's it. That's the list. And I responded, I said, that's a lazy take. Jimmy is not why they were there. He is, however, why they weren't able to cash in. Team can only overcome the worst fourth quarter quarterback in playoff history so often. His numbers in the playoffs look like he played in the 70s. And then he and I had a few more back and forth messages. And what's funny is that same guy has a tweet from around this same time last year calling Trey Lance the next great young quarterback in the NFL. So there you go. It's all, to me, it's all to get eyes on your content. That has to be it. What else is it?
I think there's that's your question there. When you start getting into the Jimmy Garoppolo thing, I think that changes the discussion, because for whatever you want to say, and I get where people are coming from, the ones that are not Jimmy Garoppolo fans, I guess, for lack of a better word. But what he said there was correct, is that with the 49ers have had great success with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. There's nothing inaccurate about that. They've had great success with him. They haven't been good without him. But that doesn't mean that Trey Lance can't replicate what the 49ers were able to accomplish with Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people are missing, is Trey Lance is way better than Nick Mullins. He's way better than CJ Beathard. He's way better than the quarterback who started in 2017 that is with the back Brian Hoyer. Right? He's better than Hoyer. He's better than those other 3 guys that have played quarterback for the 49ers during this stretch of time that Kyle Shanahan's been here, not named Jimmy Garoppolo. And I don't think the 49ers are going to take a big step back with Trey Lance. I don't think they're going to take a step back at all with the step because of him becoming their quarterback. And so for me, I understand people who might want to give him a lower record or something like that. But when you get into the comments about he's not ready, or the stuff like Sims was saying about, not able to get to 50%, which is just, it's a bad take. That's an air filler kind of a take to me. I think, that's where I take issue, is more of the, Steve Young said it best. And it's funny because there's people that are total Jimmy Garoppolo lovers on my timeline, talking, one of them responded to my tweet from today about, Sims, about Kyle Shanahan telling everybody back at the end of March what he felt about Trey Lance and his ability to start and where his readiness, I guess it was. And he tweets at me, Steve Young's comments on the Rich Eisen show from a couple of days ago. Well, I don't need you to tweet them at me. I wrote a dang article about it because I've already paid attention to it. And if you think that Steve Young was saying that Trey Lance isn't ready, and that's a good take to have, you're not listening to what he's saying, because that isn't what he said. What he
He
said
said the
was
exact opposite.
what he said was, well, he said, it's not ready. It's a load, readiness being a loaded word. He also said, saying that he's not ready is really not saying anything at all. It's just kind of, he said, of course he's not ready. He hasn't played enough. He hasn't played. That doesn't mean he's not going to do fine, but until you play, you're never ready. And I was talking, this came up in my show maybe yesterday with Aaron over on his channel, but it's like anything else. You're never ready. The first time if you want to look at the first time I went on YouTube, holy moly, or the first time I went and did a show when I started writing for Sports Illustrated, and I had to do a video for myself. My gosh, I was sweating I was sweating, and it looked awful. My girlfriend still teases me about how bad that video was, and and even on these shows when we first started doing them, there was a lot of things, whatever, and you get better as you go. And I think it's the same thing with Trey Lance. And the thing about Trey Lance is we've already seen it a little bit, right? We've seen him struggle at the beginning of the Arizona game and then come out of it and make some plays. And they didn't lose the Arizona game because Trey Lance was the quarterback. There was a whole lot of other reasons that they lost that game that didn't have to do just with Trey Lance. He was a part of it, but it wasn't just him. We saw him struggle at the beginning of the Houston game, and then we saw him figure it out and make some adjustments and get better. And that's kind of what I expect to see out of him this year, is a guy who's going to probably make some mistakes early on in games, or, whatever. Maybe it's going to all come out in the preseason and it'll be fine once he gets to the regular season. But I expect to see some mistakes out of Trey Lance, but I don't expect Trey Lance to lose more than maybe one or two games. I mean, heck, you want to talk about losing the game, just turn on the 49ers versus the Titans and then tell me that was, the quarterback didn't lose that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that Steve Young did say is that he thought it was a lazy take to just say he's not ready.
Because he didn't say that, but that's the way. That's kind of what.
That's how I interpret it. Yeah, to be fair, that's how I interpreted what he said. Yes,
and I agree. With you. I agree with you.
And going back to Chris Brockman, who's Rich Eisen's co-host, his take was extremely lazy, and I know it was lazy because he responded with, "If Trey Lance makes a Super Bowl and NFC Championship game back-to-back years, I'll apologize. Until then, I'll remain skeptical." It's like, dude, that's this whole notion of quarterback wins and a team's overall success relying on one player is what really baffles me. Like, Trey Lance can have a way better season and clearly look better than Jimmy, and the 49ers be worse than what they were last year. I think both certainly could be true. And it doesn't mean that Trey Lance isn't better than Jimmy. It's everything changes from season to season. Injuries, schedule, teammates, coaches, so much is different that you cannot go back and recreate the 2021 season and just plug in Trey Lance and see what the results are. I would love to do that, but that's not a possibility. So if Trey Lance comes out and looks better in every single way, not only statistically puts up better numbers, but the eye test, he passes it, but the 49ers go 9-8 or 8-9. I mean, is that Trey Lance's fault? So now you're telling me that if Jimmy was inserted with worse numbers and actually looking worse, that all of a sudden they magically win 2 more games? Like, those are the types of takes that really, really irk me.
Well, I think it depends. They can go 9-8 and he could, and Trey Lance can play good, and there's all the way through, and they're losing games because of who knows what other, a lot of reasons can go into it, or they can go 9-8 because he just doesn't play good. I mean, we can't,
right?
But you have to look at it at the end of the day and really be able to break down the games and pay attention and stuff like that. And it's funny, that's a interesting take. The fact that you're arguing with Rich Eisen's one of his co-hosts, because Rich Eisen is very pro Trey Lance himself, and so it creates good back and forth. I'm not sold on Trey Lance being the next Patrick Mahomes or anything like that, but he doesn't need to be. He just needs to be better than Jimmy Garoppolo, and we've already seen him, I think, I think we saw him match Jimmy Garoppolo last year when we watched him play his 2 starts.
Yeah, and they're different players, right? Like the team, he can have success in different ways than Jimmy, much different ways, right? He can
Yeah.
do it with his legs. He can do it by stretching the field. Maybe his short or intermediate game isn't on the level, or his quick passing game isn't on the level, right? But he can get it done in different ways. And so, I don't know. The whole conversation is just getting beyond frustrating. But again, it goes back to, and I think we talked about this last week, maybe the week before, maybe I'm just blending shows together. But to me, the 49ers have to have culpability in why this conversation is happening, period. Like the reason that this is happening is because Jimmy Garoppolo is still here, right? Regardless of the reason why Jimmy's here, the 49ers have to have some of that on their shoulders. And if Jimmy's not here, a lot of these conversations are very, very different. But the fact that Jimmy's here, they've won with Jimmy, regardless of why or how they've won with Jimmy. The thought is, well, maybe Jimmy starts, or maybe there's a competition, or maybe Trey's not ready, or this, that, and the third. It leaves it open to interpretation. And so that's what's happening. And some people are taking interpretation and putting their own spin on it, flat out making things up, I believe. But that's what we see happening. And a big chunk of that is because Jimmy G is still on the roster.
Yeah, and what I'll say about that is I understand what you're saying, because I could make the same. I don't totally disagree with that. The fact that he's here is the reason why you're having that. Why we're having, and I think why we're seeing so many of these takes. My thing is that the reason that we continue to have these these negative takes on Trey Lance and everything that you're talking about, as far as Jimmy Garoppolo still being on the roster. People aren't listening. They're just not listening. The 49ers have come out and they've told you. We had this conversation during the owners meeting, how first off it was John Lynch, and then the next day it was Kyle Shanahan. And if you listen to what both of them say, especially what Kyle Shanahan said, they're ready to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. They are ready for Trey Lance to be the starting quarterback. They believe that Trey Lance is ready to be their starting quarterback. And the rest of the talk is just people not listening. I wrote an article last week about it, and it's, part of it was, because there's part of it was, if I was to rewrite that, I keep all the stuff that I talked about how you have these national media people who are negative on Trey Lance because they got taken last year in the draft. They thought that for sure it was going to be Mac Jones because that's what they thought. They were all had their major assumptions, and their assumptions were wrong, and the 49ers laughed at them in a way. That's part of it. And then the other part is they just need to fill airtime, and they're just not listening. And there's enough people who are football fans that don't pay attention enough, and so they can get by with just making those kind of things. You don't have to be. It's sad to say, and I know I'm in this business because we're here on YouTube, but you don't have to be accurate with what you talk about. You don't. You just don't. There's enough people out there that are going to buy anything. That's why we had the president that we had a couple of years ago. Sorry if there's anybody out there that likes him, but I mean, really, right? And even and not even just him, but in general, politicians in general are like that. So if you're a Trump supporter, I'm not going at you. I'm just saying and that's not just him. That's just something that's glaring, right? And you have the same thing with Joe Biden now. So let me get off of politics before I take the show down the wrong path, right? But you know what I'm saying, right? You can just say you say whatever you want. The fact checkers come out and say what they're, and check you. But once it's out there, it's out there. And especially if you have the following of some of these people that are out there saying this stuff, it's not going to stop until he plays, and it might not ever stop.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly right. I mean, you can say whatever you want, you can throw it out in the ether, and some people are going to hold you accountable, but at the end of the day, it's not really even that big of a deal. Like, you've got a whole community talking about it. I think what we're seeing also is that these people know that 49er fans talk. Like, 49er fans, let's just be clear. You go onto Twitter, you go onto social media, 49er fans, man, they are crazy over their team, right? Whether it's a Twitter space or whatever. I mean, you put 49ers on it, and people have got their eyes on it. And a lot of people commenting and talking about it. You don't think that these shows don't see that? And this is how you know that they know about it, because even Sims had to come out and re-clarify and say, hey, don't kill me over at 49er fans. I know how you guys get. They know exactly how it's going to be perceived. They know that 49er fans are going to take it and run with it one way or another. I mean, we just spent 25 minutes. We didn't even plan on talking about it. We had a whole different agenda. We're like, last second, let's just throw this in and talk about it, see where it takes us. We're 27 minutes into a show talking about exactly that. So they're getting exactly what they want, and that's fine. Like, I appreciate them giving us content. I guess my thing is maybe I'm a little bit different, and you brought this up as well. I want to put together an intelligent take. Doesn't mean I'm always going to be right. Okay. I'm not always going to be right in the things that I say. But if I say it, I mean it. I feel like I've done enough homework on it to say it. And in that moment, right, wrong, or indifferent, I believe what I'm saying. I feel like a lot of these guys genuinely don't believe what they're saying, but they know that it's going to get the engagement, or their network knows it's going to get the engagement. And so they throw it out there. And so that's the way that I believe a lot of this is being ran with.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And then real quick, I want to hit on this comment from Matt. He says, don't be so naive. This organization is known to lie before. Lynch is actually floating the idea of keeping Jimmy. I mean, the idea of floating Jimmy, floating the idea of keeping Jimmy is the same reason why the organization said that they felt like DeForest Buckner was going to be here long term. You can't trade a guy if everybody knows it, you're getting rid of him anyway. Everybody knew it after the 2019 season, it was either going to be DeForest Buckner or Eric Armstead. Who was it going to be? So the 49ers had to make a choice between those two. They made the choice that they did, but they're not going to come out and say, yeah, we're going to go with Eric Armstead. We're going to get rid of this guy. You have to really take some time to look through what's all taking place. With the 49ers, you don't trade up to number 3 in the draft expecting to sit with Jimmy Garoppolo for 2 years when you have a guy who you can win with, and especially after what they saw last year with them. They went into the Trey Lance experiment. I had somebody else on Twitter today as well tell me that all they needed to know about this thing is Trey Lance continuing to, or Jimmy Garoppolo continuing to start in the postseason despite the injuries. And we've had discussions about that too. I think that this whole season, we went into 2021, Trey Lance's whole job was to learn to be an NFL quarterback. They were hoping that that would be the case. He surprised them a little bit. He made a run at the starting position. The wheels kind of came off as that process went through. They were able to get all of that teaching done to the point even where in the second half of the season, he started having a regular press conference. That wasn't something they did in the beginning of the season. They didn't have him come and meet with the media. But then, in the second half of the year, some of it was because of the injuries with Garoppolo and they're playing some games, whatever. But he was able to spend time going through the reps of dealing with the media on a regular basis. I mean, they just did. I really like everything that they did with Trey Lance, and I think everything was geared towards him being the starting quarterback in 2022. And everything that they've said and everything that they've done to this point to this period right now points to them going in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally fair. I want to bring up a comment that Jan brings up. He said 2 of them, but the first one, he says, we could say the same about 49ers content creators. They know if they shit on Trey, the clicks won't come and people will unsub. Well, Jan, I mean, I haven't seen you for a while, so what's up, brother? Hopefully everything's good with you. But I remember pre-draft, you were a big Mac Jones guy, right? And you and I had a lot of conversation through Grant's channel. So weed through that from the very beginning. I've been very consistent. I was a Trey Lance guy. You know that. So sure, I'm sure that there are some people that maybe have that stance, but I can also tell you that there's a gentleman, not even going to mention his name, but he has more than quadrupled his following in 60 days on Twitter and has started a YouTube channel with a small following, yet has like 7,000 views on a video crapping on Trey Lance. You can do it either way. To me, I just like to be honest in what I'm saying and come from a point of actually believing what I'm saying. Again, doesn't mean I'm going to be right. Doesn't mean that I'm always right. That's the personal, that's the way that I like to go with it personally. That's the way that I like to deliver content. It's not for everybody. It probably isn't going to grow my channel as quickly as what I would like it to. That's okay. I mean, I didn't necessarily get into this to get a bunch of subs and all those other things. That will come over time as long as I continue to grind, maybe slower. But I prefer that people say, well, you know what? He's not always right, but he comes at it from from a point of integrity, right? And that's the way that I prefer to deliver my personal content. So take it or leave it.
Yeah, and the other comment that Jan says here is saying Sims only does that for clicks when YouTubers live by clicks is funny. Yeah, I mean it is, and that's kind of why I said, I know what I'm saying here is what can be taken in a bunch of different ways because I'm doing the same thing in terms of what I want to get clicks, but I know that I don't go into this in any direction trying to get clicks in terms of like playing to a crowd. I guess is what I'm saying. And you hit on it. If you go back to the draft, that's when I started this channel was, about a year ago. We've been doing this show for over a year together now. So I started the channel about, a year and a half ago or whatever. I was the biggest Mac Jones guy that there was. I kept saying that the 49ers should draft Mac Jones, Mac Jones, Mac Jones, Mac Jones all the time. You and I would go back and forth on it. We never argued about it, but you had your side and I had mine. I like Trey Lance, but I believed that Mac Jones was the best, and I dealt with all that stuff last year, and I didn't care. And the thing that the problem that I have right now is you have the words from the team telling you what they're going to do. You have actual film of Trey Lance. It's only 2 games, so you can't make any definitive statements, but you can definitely look at his film and you can say he improved here. And he improved here, and he improved here, and you can make some judgments that you think that of what's going, the direction's going to go, and the sim stuff. Everybody knows. Last thing I'm going to say, everybody knows, and you've said this, Jessie, and that there was a point in time, and it's still true, where you can talk about anytime you bring up a thing with Trey Lance, it's a discussion point. People tune in. I could come on here though and start ripping Trey Lance, and my numbers will probably go through the roof. But you're never going to see me do it because I don't believe it. And the same thing when it comes to Jimmy Garoppolo. That's why I never ripped Jimmy Garoppolo last year. The only time I ripped Jimmy Garoppolo was when he played like shit. When he played bad. Sorry, but when he played bad, I said he played bad. When he played good, I said he played good. And there were times when you and I would argue about how good he played, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, Trey Lance is going to be the starting quarterback of the 49ers in 2022. You can book it right now. If I'm wrong, you guys can come back here and tell me that I'm wrong in September, on September 11th, if it's Jimmy Garoppolo that takes the field. But as long as Trey Lance is healthy, he's going to be the starting quarterback. I even had somebody over at the Press Democrat telling me today in a response about an article that I wrote where I had said back on the 10th of May that Trey Lance was going to be the starting quarterback this year. And then in the most recent article I wrote, I was talking about how people were not sure of his ability. And I think that he was conflating that and thinking that I was talking about that was me and my take on it. My take on it has been pretty consistent all along. This is Trey Lance's team moving forward. And Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be gone in one way or another once his shoulder heals. he's on the team. Jimmy Garoppolo is here because the 49ers they either want to get a draft pick for him or they want to get that 700. They don't want to lose $7.5 million due to the injury guarantee.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I just want to clarify. So when I say that Sims or some of these other guys are doing it for clicks, everybody's entitled to their opinion, right? Even if it's vastly different than mine. My whole point is don't make things up to make your opinion come across as validated. And so when Sims says things like every effing game was a miracle for Trey Lance to get to 50% completion, that's just not true. That's a flat out lie. Again, he started 2 games. So you're saying both games he started, every game he said 2, he played 2. Every game was a miracle for him to get to 50% passing. He was 16-23 versus the Texans. He was never in jeopardy of being anywhere near 50% passing only. So it's a flat out lie. Like, you're just making things up at this point. It's not true. That's what I have a problem with. I don't have a problem with anybody having a differing opinion than mine, as long as you come at it intellectually, intelligently, and have things to back up what you say that aren't flat out lies. That's where I have the issue.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know. There's one other one on here that I do want to bring up, and it's Matt, and he says, not too long ago, you, Jack, were on Grant's show saying you thought they would keep Jimmy next year. I'll never forget Grant's face when you said that. He had me laughing all day. And you're right. You want to know when it changed? When I heard John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan say that it was going to be Trey Lance's job to lose in March. If you go back and you go to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com, go to the third page. That has the article from March 22nd. I wrote an article about Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance and how the 49ers could survive with both of them on the team and how the two could compete. And I thought that wouldn't be a bad thing for the 49ers. I still don't think it would be an awful thing for them to have them compete. I don't buy into the fact that would cause the rift that everybody thinks it does. But once I heard the comments from John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, it was pretty clear the direction that the team was going. And that's the whole thing. That's what I'm getting at, is that I hear information. One of the things that I've learned over the last year is that when the 49ers guys are talking about stuff, especially, there are times when they lie. If you want to believe that everything they're saying is a lie, you're going to be so far off track with what reality is that you don't, because I've been there before. One of the things that they're not giving you the full story in their comments. They're not going to come out and say, like yesterday, for example, somebody was like, Kyle Shanahan just needs to come out and he just needs to say that it's Trey Lance as the starting quarterback. He needs to end this today. They're not going to do that, but they've told you through their actions with trying to trade him. They've told you that they feel like to trade Garoppolo. They've told you that they feel like Trey Lance is ready to start. That's why they were willing to trade Jimmy Garoppolo or looking to trade him. And I think it's if you want to continue to say that it's an issue and they're whatever, I mean, that's your choice. I'm not going to keep going down that rabbit hole. I just think you need to really listen to what's being said.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think that's the other thing, is that opinions should change based off of information presented to you. But I didn't see that show, but you're making me want to go back and watch it, Matt, because Grant's facial expressions certainly can get you laughing for sure. And it sounds like you enjoyed that one.
Yeah, well, I think there was definitely some times around that point where when we were doing the shows and I know that I would tell you last year even that there was, that it's not out of the realm of possibility of Jimmy Garoppolo returning for 2022. Mm-hmm. That, if they really, if the 49ers really want to keep him, they could make it work based off of, extending them or doing all those kind of things. We've had those conversations. I mean, if you're doing it, you're looking at all the alternatives, but what they've said in the recent months, and as they've the more they've gotten in front of the media, going back to the combine, and then now you start to get a better feel for the direction that they're taking.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think we have time to? We probably can't do both lists, but do you think we have time to do? Do we want to?
We've got about what, 10 minutes, about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, because you have
probably 10 minutes, probably 10 minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's do this. Let's transition off of Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance, because we're not going to solve this today, even though I already have it solved, and I told everybody that Trey Lance is going to be the starting quarterback. So you heard it here first, like 3 weeks ago, but whatever, it's fun. No, I'm joking. But we wanted to talk. We were going to do a positive and a negative from our 49ers games past, and because of the time, we decided in the discussion leading into it that we're kind of running late. So let's do the toughest, I guess, the toughest defeats that we've dealt with the 49ers. Correct?
Okay. Is that what we can do about? That. Yeah, we can do that. Worst moments, toughest defeats, and this is obviously from a perspective of what we remember, right? So we might have a completely different recollection or different games just based off of what we've actually been alive to witness. So, all right. So do you want me to go full list, just give my 5, or do you want to go each of us give one and go back and forth until we've given our 5?
Well, I don't have a list. I don't have them listed out because there's so many of them. So why don't you do one and then I'll do one. We'll see how many we can get through in 10 minutes.
Okay. So the first one that stands out to me is 1999, week 3 versus the Arizona Cardinals. Nayls Williams and Steve Young's career. And what stands out to me most about this is that the 49ers were up, I believe, 17-0 right before halftime. And they had the ball. It was like 20-something seconds left in the half, or 40-something seconds left in the half. Really no reason to even do anything. And Steve Young drops back, gets hammered, left on the field, and never plays again. That was it for him. And for me, Steve Young is my favorite player of all time. And so the moment that he was done, and I don't think we necessarily realized that would be the end of his career, but obviously, that ended up being the case. And the fact that it happened in such a meaningless moment to top it off is something that I'll never forget.
Yeah. And that's I think you got that brings up a tweet that I'd sent out a while ago about how Bill Walsh started Steve Young's career in San Francisco and he ended it. And people, I don't know if everybody understood what I was saying there, but the guy that missed the block was the running back from Nebraska. I can't remember his name right now. And a lot of people didn't like the fact that Bill Walsh decided to sign him, and then he missed the block and Bluey, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
And that, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. But the thing is that he'd had so many concussions that it was eventually going to happen anyways. It just sucks the way that it happened.
no, it did, and that it's funny. I didn't even have that on my list of things. But since you brought up a quarterback injury, I'm going to go with my favorite quarterback, and we go back to the 1990 NFC Championship game, and 49ers are leading. What was it? 12-9? No, 12-10. 13. God dang. 13-12. It was 13-12.
All right.
And Joe Montana gets flushed out of the pocket, rolls to his right, goes to throw it, and Leonard Marshall drills him from behind. 49ers end up recovering the ball, but we never really saw Joe Montana play as a 49er again. I mean, I know we played the second half of the Monday night game against the Detroit Lions a couple of years later, but that was just in garbage time kind of thing. And that was a bad one. And then on top of that, you just go play the rest of that game out, and you have Steve Young hit Brent Jones down the middle for a big gain, and then they hand the ball off to they screw up on the play call, and because they messed up on the play call, Roger Craig's isn't going to the wrong side. He's going where the play call, it should have been going the other side, which would have taken him away from Lawrence Taylor. And Taylor's able to get the hand in there and knock it out, and Taylor recovers it and everything. So
The chat's
Kick the
reminding
field
us
goal.
it was Lawrence Phillips.
Yeah, Lawrence Phillips. That's right.
Ugh.
Lawrence Phillips. Yep. All-time great 49er right there.
Yeah, exactly. I think you got a super chat. I don't know if you want to get to that real quick.
Yeah, no, real quick. Yeah. Jay's always really good about this stuff. He's always in here with us, and I always appreciate it. Thank you very much for the donation. He says, Jack, is 22 TDs and 10 interceptions with 3,000 yards too much to expect from a rookie quarterback? Is that too high of expectations, or are those numbers okay? And he says, you're fair. I think those numbers are too low. If Trey Lance only gets 3,000 yards passing, the 22 TDs and the 10 interceptions, I'm not as a, those are Jimmy Garoppolo numbers from this last year, right? Close to that, I think.
22-10, I think is exactly it. Yeah.
So yeah, no, if it's 22, I just think that the 3,000 yards, you're going to be closer to 4,000. Jimmy Garoppolo's at 3,900. I think that to expect Trey Lance, my expectation is about 4,300 yards for Trey Lance, probably about 22 to 25 touchdowns. And I think his interception total is going to be in single digits.
4,300 passing or all in?
Passing.
Oh.
Well, think about it. Really quick. There's 17 games, though, in the season now. Jimmy Garoppolo threw for 3,900 last year, and he missed 2.5 games.
Yeah, but Josh Allen only threw for 4,400 last year, and he's, I think, the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But when you look at him, Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo was second in the NFL last year in yards per attempt at 8.6, and Trey Lance was right behind him at 8.5. Mm-hmm. And I think that you're going to see Trey Lance probably around that same number again. And then the difference between it, the fact that their number was so close like that is impressive when you consider that Lance completed 10% fewer of his passes. So I'm excited to see what Trey Lance can do. I think he's going to get over 4,000 yards passing.
Yeah, that'd be dope. I'll take that because he's probably going to put up 500 rushing. So there you go. That's that's a lot.
Yeah, I just be look at what he has to throw, who he has to throw to, and if the offensive line does okay, I think he's going to put up big numbers.
Okay, that's fair. That's totally fair. I like it. Listen, I love the optimism. I'll take it. All right, I think we have time for one more moment.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. Yep, go ahead. Give me your next one.
So the next moment for me would be the 1999 divisional playoff game against the Falcons. First play from scrimmage, Garrison Hurst breaks his leg, and they end up losing to the Falcons, who eventually upset the Minnesota Vikings. I think it was a 15-1 Vikings team to make it to the Super Bowl and lose to the Denver Broncos. And I really feel like that team, because they had just gotten over the hump of Green Bay, and I felt like that team was better than Atlanta. Now, what happens against Minnesota? Who knows? Minnesota was a tough team for sure. High-flying offense, but Garrison Hurst going down ruined all chances of them winning that game. And I believe they would have beaten the Atlanta Falcons and gone to the NFC Championship, and you never know what happens from there. So that was the last time in that era, quite literally Steve Young's career, that they were competitive, because the next season, 3 weeks later, he was done. So yeah, that was the end of that team, and that was the end of the Steve Young era, really.
Yeah, well, it was really that was the end of the 49ers run of greatness that started in 81. Right? Because after that, that year that you're talking about, the next year was like you said, Young got hurt, and I think they won 4 games that year or something like that, or maybe 5, whatever the number was. It wasn't very many, and they struggled for a couple of years before they kind of got it going again. You got back to the playoffs with Garcia and Owens and all that crew, but then it was never the same. And the 49ers still haven't gotten back to that period, but they're getting closer now. I think they're a lot closer than people think. Okay, so since we're staying on the playoff game, I'm going to go to the 92 NFC Championship game against the Cowboys. That one was a game the 49ers should have won. I was just looking at something the other day. It popped up on my YouTube, and I was watching the start of that game in the first series, and Steve Young hits Jerry Rice for a 70-yard touchdown pass right down the middle of the field, and you get a holding call on Guy McIntyre, brings it back, and there were just so many things about that game that should have swung it in the 49ers direction, and that's when you look back at it, and part of it was, I used to always blame it on Steve Young, and I was probably overly harsh on him. If it was me now looking at that game, I would have probably gone in a lot of different directions. My take on that loss would have been different. Yeah, that's one that they should have won, and they should have put that game away. That's a game that was there for them, and they just number of little things throughout that game cost them.
Yeah, absolutely. God, I've got so many more that I could go.
Well, I do too. I mean, I was gonna go with the regular season loss in 2000 to the Raiders. That was one that went into overtime, and Tim Brown catches a pass on the right sideline on a wheel route to win the game in overtime. It was a meaningless game for the 49ers in that they were, it was a bad season overall. That was, I think, a 6-10 season, but that was a game, at Candlestick Park, and it was the Raiders and Oakland Raiders against the 49ers, and the place was crazy. And then walking out of the stadium, some guy wanted to fight with me, and I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah. So,
you're right. Yeah. He brings up a good point. He says, it's so funny watching old games. You're always expecting late hit penalties, and they never come. The game was so different then. You're right. The game was so different then. So
no,
next week, if we have time, let's end it on a couple moments that we remember that are positive. We can end it on a more positive moment.
Absolutely. I agree. We're leaving everybody on a Debbie Downer today. Now look at that. We got Smoking Niner guy. He's coming in here. He's checking in all the way from Okinawa, Japan. That is awesome.
That is dope.
I always love having the international folks. So, but we got to wrap this baby up because Jesse's got to get over to his channel. He's got a show coming up with Grant over there. Mm-hmm. Want to really quick say thank you to everybody in the comment section, even those of you that I was arguing with. You guys it's always fun to come on here. Hopefully, you know that it's not personal. We're talking football, and I'm not, any kind of way with you. Jesse, thank you for coming on, doing this with me so often like you do.
Yeah, of course. Hammer and nail shows, man. We'll never stop doing this. No, I appreciate everybody for tapping in, and same thing, right? Like it's crazy because you only get a limited amount of characters to make your point, and then I get to take that and run with it. So a lot of times it's not fair. That's why you got to keep tuning in to Jack's show and my show. We do have those call-in shows so that you can really get a full point across. I know how it is being on your side of things. Certainly it can be frustrating, especially sometimes if the host takes what you said out of context a little bit. But we appreciate each and every one of you for always rocking with us. Whether you like us or you just hate watch us, it doesn't matter. Make sure that you subscribe to Jack's channel. And if you still want more 49ers content in 2 minutes over at Last Second Sports, you can come over there. I got a little bone to pick with Mr. Grant Cohn on his record prediction. So we're going to talk about that and much more tonight.
Take him to task, Jesse.
I will.
Take him to task. But before, as you guys leave, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the little bell notification so you never miss us when we go live. Get yourselves to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. Make that a favorite on your web browser. Other than that, have a great Thursday night. I'll be back tomorrow with the show on my channel, as well as with Rob Shu over on his. So take care, everybody. Have a great Thursday night, and we'll talk soon.